Thank you for watching the Community Spotlight. I'm your host, ATIYA Harris. Today we have an awesome guest for you. We have Terry Colin, who is Vice President, Senior Financial Advisor of TRULIANT, which is a subsidiary of TRULIANT Federal Credit Union. And today we're going to be talking to you all about Social Security. There's a lot of concerns in America as a whole in regards to Social Security. So we're going to clarify some of that for you today and also give you information that's going to empower you to be prepared when you retire. How are you doing today, Terry?
I'm doing well, ATIYA. Thank you for having me on today.
Okay, well, we appreciate you for coming on the program. Let's talk a little bit about your background. We know that you're the #1 financial advisor among all credit unions in the Southeast. Can you give us some more feedback?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, CUNA, which is the Credit Union National Association, every year selects advisors to join what's called their Senior Advisor Leadership Team. Out of the 600 plus advisors, only 2 get that award every year. 2013, I was one of the 2 to get the award. It's the highest that we can get in our broker-dealer. So after 25 years of doing this, I think my model is I just suck less than everybody else.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well,
yeah.
basically, you're great at what you do in terms of investments and things of that nature. You came all the way out here from AIG in California, so you're pretty much a bona fide expert in the field. And again, we do have some concerns in the area of Social Security. So let's talk about the fund, how it started. And I'm going to start with these statistics that I have here, and then we're going to how it was initially established and what the concerns are today, the fact that we have the baby boomers and we have less people now paying into the fund, and how the government shutdown and debt ceiling is affecting this situation as well. All right, so here's the start of the statistics. Overall, 54% of the approximately 8.3 million Social Security recipients were women in 2012, but that percentage varied greatly by age group. Women accounted for 67% of the 2.1 million recipients aged 65 or older, 54% of the 4.9 million recipients aged 18 to 64, and 33% of the 1.3 million recipients under age 18. Also, did you know that Social Security paid benefits to about 61.9 million people in 2012? Social Security provided at least half the income for 64% of the age beneficiaries in 2011. Social Security benefits were awarded to about 5.7 million people in 2012. Women accounted for 55% of adult Social Security beneficiaries in 2012. The average age of disabled worker beneficiaries was 53.2 in 2012. 86% of Social Security recipients received payments because of disability or blindness in 2012. So first of all, how did this fund get started? And let's talk about the jeopardy that we're in today. You know, when it initially started, you had 15 payers per one person, and now that number has definitely dwindled.
Yeah, great insight, Tio. And it's interesting you mentioned women and Social Security, and one of the things that we look at is the aging of the American population, and what we're finding is that women are outliving men, and they're living a lot of times into their 80s and 90s. I mean, if I ask people, look around you, how many people do you know are in their 80s or 90s? And typically at that point, I'll have an audience raise their hand if that person's female. And clearly, I've been doing this 25 years. The majority of the time in the audience, at least half the hands still up, signifying that that person who's in their 90s is a female. So what does that have to do with Social Security? Well, so many people don't understand, number one, what Social Security is, how it's funded, whether or not it's going to be there for them, and when they should take it, take their benefit. And the mistakes that they make affect them for the rest of their life as they retire. In some places, in poverty, living only on Social Security alone. When Social Security was set up in the 30s, it was set up basically to keep elderly people out of poverty. We had just gone through the Great Depression. Many people were struggling to even survive, much less eat, much less be able to maintain their lifestyle. So the program was set up initially as a program to provide a subsistence level of income, just enough to help you barely stay there or barely struggle. And somehow it became a pension, a retirement account. That's not what Social Security was made to be. And so Social Security was really meant to be 1/3 of a person's retirement income. 1/3.
That's powerful because nowadays it's like 100% of many people's.
What we're seeing, especially among minorities and females, a lot of people, that's all they have.
Okay,
And-
this is bad. This is bad. We need to pause right there for one moment. That's all they have. I have been encountering a number of people that do not have enough money to survive. When you have single individuals on Social Security, their checks are so tiny that they go from an independent state to a dependent state.
Yeah, I think the average benefit right now in 2013 is $1,100 a month. So if you do the math, that's a little over what, $12,000 a year? That is not enough to maintain a lifestyle.
So we need to pause right there just for one moment. You said it's meant to be 1/3 of your income. Now we're hearing this small figure when it comes to living on a monthly basis. So basically, folks need to have some other type of retirement in place. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, when Social Security was set up, they wanted people to have 3 sources of income. Social Security was one source. The second source was supposed to be your employer, a pension plan, or nowadays a 401k. And the third was supposed to be you. It's like those old 3-legged stools. You know, you have 3 legs and a stool. 1/3 with the government, 1/3 you, 1/3 the employer. Many employers have stopped offering pension plans. Many people are living paycheck to paycheck, not putting in their own 401k or saving, which is leaving a lot of people dependent on just one leg. And as the stool would fall, so does their retirement.
And you know, it's a sad thing, you know, being in the financial industry, we see these type of things all the time. And so when you get to a certain point, I think it's too late at that point to kind of put that 3-legged stool together. But everyone needs to make an effort, especially if they're under a certain age, to put that 3-legged stool together, because what's going to happen is it makes no sense for you to be in an independent state and then you turn around and wind up in a dependent state on family members, loved ones, and friends because you didn't plan properly. Now, me personally, I've helped several elderly individuals in my family, and some family members are going to come together and do it out of love because that's what we want to do. But if they had prepared properly, then it would have been better for everybody, including themselves. So at what age, just pausing right here, at what age should a person be putting that 3-legged stool together, and what age do you think is too late to put it together?
Okay, first of all, it's never too late.
Okay.
Okay, number one, and what age should you start preparing? The day you start working. You know, financial planning is pretty simple. If you make a buck, tithe 10 cents, save 10 cents for yourself and live on the rest. You know, that rest is what you are starting to build your leg, one of your legs. If your employer matches you in a 401k, all right, if you put $1 in, they give you $1 back. That's $2 for one. Right away, 100% return. Most people, when they leave their job, they spend that. They go spend it on Christmas presents. They borrow from it. Things that leave them solely dependent on the one leg. Katrina, horrible disaster, rolled through New Orleans. But yet, if you look at the sky map, scientists have radar. They said this storm was coming. And my concern is the storm that's coming now with the government shutdowns and the debt ceiling debate, as a group is looking at reducing entitlements. We had a presidential candidate say that the poor are okay. The safety net's good for them. Yet, as they slowly dismantle it, limiting the cost of living adjustments and Social Security has been talked about, doing things to make people wait longer to get it, to keep it solvent. Currently, when Social Security was set up, we had about 10 people paying for one person. Currently, we now have 3 people paying for one. You've heard of the baby boomers, right?
Yes.
That we have 10,000 people turning age 65 every single day. And do you know when most people take their Social Security?
When?
At
Early?
age 62, early. And that gives them a 25% haircut for life. Let me give you an example. When you get your Social Security statement, or you can go to ssa.gov and pull it up, but when you get your statement, it tells you a couple of things. Number one, it tells you what the number is based on. Social Security is based on 35 years of your earnings. So we got people working under the table, not thinking they're getting over. What's happening in those years? You're getting zeros. You're getting zeros. And all of those years average to your income, which is now determined what your actual paycheck's going to be. So you want to make sure, number one, that you're getting your 40 quarters. You know, you get about 4 quarters a year, so you work 10 years of employment. You are eligible.
Okay.
Once you're eligible, all right, the next step you got to look at is when do I get it? Now, if you're married, do you know that if you're married, you can actually draw on your spouse's benefit, even if you're divorced?
Wow.
As long as you've been married for at least 10 years.
Wow.
And so many people don't even know how to do that. They'll go in and draw their own benefit early when they could have delayed their own benefit and taken a spousal benefit. If you take Social Security early, which is 62, not only do you get a haircut in your payments, you cannot earn more than 14 grand a year before you have to give back $1 for every dollar they gave you. Mm-hmm. And you've permanently reduced your lifetime income. So if you say, when do you start preparing? Let's say I'm in my 30s or 40s or even 50s, and I start using my company's 401k, and I put it in a moderate investment, and I let this build up. Let's say it gets to 100 grand, all right, by 65. Now, what you can do is you can actually, instead of taking your Social Security early, you can use that money to live on. I'll give you an example. The average person at 62 would get roughly $1,100, $1,200 a month, all right? But what if that person took that same 12 or 13, 14 grand from their 401k and used it for 4 years? Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's 60 grand you spent. You spent 60 grand of your 401k money, but you let your Social Security check go up to 25,000 now.
Okay.
For life.
Mm-hmm.
Every year you delay touching your Social Security, you get a pay raise. Matter of fact, from 65 to 70, every year you delay your Social Security, you get an 8% raise. 8% guaranteed return. So if you're married to somebody, what you should do is let the highest income earner delay their Social Security. What we call it is file and suspend. So you turn 65, if I'm married to you, and you're the highest income earner.
Yep.
All right? What you should do at 65 is file your Social Security, but then suspend your payment. That then allows me to get your spouse, get 50% of your benefit. I haven't touched mine yet. Now your benefit is increasing 8% a year, which you'll draw at 70. Once I turn 70, I'll draw my benefit. Now, why is that important? Because the maximum payout right now is around 36 grand a year at 70. Now, me and you are married at 70, 75, I pass away. You now would go to the highest benefit, or I would go to the highest benefit. You don't get two checks. So one person should delay their Social Security. And I hear this all the time. Well, I'm not going to live long enough. I'm going to get mine early. Well, really? You just told me by show of hands earlier that there are plenty of people in their 80s and 90s. So the question becomes, if I take it early, at what point would I break even? At what point would I have been better off getting a higher amount later? I can get $1,000 today, or I can get $3,000 7 or 8 years from today. So we call that calculation a break-even calculation. So here's the facts. If you take Social Security at 62 and you're still alive at 75, you blew it.
You blew it.
You will have gotten more money by waiting till 65. Even if you took the money early, at that point you'd have gotten more dollars by delaying. Now, the next question is 65 versus 70. The answer is 81. Somebody has to make it past 81. If you make it past 81, you will have received almost $600,000 to $800,000 from Social Security. So clearly, by delaying and using tactics like file and suspend, cancel and delay, drawing on a spouse's benefit, even if that spouse is deceased or you were married for them for 10 years, can allow you to get more money for your leg or that one leg of the stool. A lot of times people will say, well, Terry, Social Security won't be here for me. Well, on your Social Security statement, it tells you that the Social Security payment is fully funded to the year 2033. At that point, if the Congress does not change the law, you would get about 76% of your benefit. But let's look at what happens. Social Security is made up of payroll tax. That's what pays into it. You know, when you pay your income, when you make a paycheck, you pay OSDI, Old Age Survivor Disability Insurance, that's Social Security. So you're paying over 6% into that fund. That payment alone is enough to pay 76% of Social Security benefit. The trust fund, which is the extra, will be out of money in 2033 unless they change the law. And they've done it before. And they talked about doing it again. So what law change happened? In 1999, Greenspan and a bunch of individuals said, everybody used to get it at 65. We'll have some people now get it at 66, some at 67. And by doing that, they pushed the Social Security solvency out to 2033 from 2015. They're going to do it again. So the current legislation is talking about, for those people under age 50, you're probably going to get a change where it says 66 or 67 now. It'll probably be 68 or 69. And for those kids who are 10 years old or so, it'll probably be 70. Why is that important? Once again, as less people pay in and people live longer, you got to do something to make it solvent. And that current fight on Capitol Hill right now, when you hear them talking about entitlements, well, Social Security is one of those entitlements that they're coming after. So same with Medicare. That's another entitlement. But the best fix is talking about, number one, increasing the eligibility age, and number two, decoupling the cost of living increases from the way they currently do it. Like right now, you get a Social Security raise every now and then. But if they say, well, you know what, chicken went up, but Spam didn't, you could have bought Spam, then you would not get a Social Security increase. But the key to Social Security is understanding it's going to be there. You will never get zero, and therefore you should use the tricks that are in place to maximize household income. You know, I've helped couples retire on close to 70 grand a year from Social Security.
Well, I think that's a beautiful thing, and based off of everything that you just shared, it's very important that we have this three-legged stool together. So it's good to know that it's going to be there, but we may get less or we may have to wait to get the money. So we definitely need the three-legged stool. And my concern is I would like to see people retire, put the backpack on, and travel. I think most people's dream is I want to relax, I want to travel, I want to have a good time, and not retire into poverty. I think many people are retiring into poverty because they're solely, for the most part, relying on Social Security, and they don't have proper streams of retirement. And then also another concern I have that you mentioned is that women are actually living longer than the men, which means that some measures need to be put in place, because even if you have a couple that's married and one passes away, then you get the larger of the two checks. So if you can kind of use your expertise and elaborate on that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. How can we make sure we have the knapsack, the backpack, we can travel, be comfortable when it comes time for retirement, and for that woman who is trending to live longer than the man, how can we make sure she is definitely going to be comfortable?
Great question. So first of all, women are get hit by two or three things. Number one, they live longer. Number two, they typically make less, right? And they typically leave the workforce as caregivers. So they're going to help raise their kids and put all their efforts and energy and finances into their children. And then when they come back to work, they tend to play catch up. So a lot of things are against them from the beginning. But here's the deal. Planning is what makes it work. The sooner you start to plan, the better off you're going to be. You have to look at, with people living so much longer, that retirement may be, instead of working 40 hours a week, I work 20 hours a week, part-time job. If you can bring in about 20, 25 grand a year, that replaces about $400,000 in a retirement account. We use 4 or 5% withdrawal rules depending on where you're at. So $1 million saved up is only 50 grand a year. That's all it can provide. Because if I give you 50 grand this year and I give you 50 grand in 20 years, that 50 grand is only worth about 25 because prices have gone up. So when you talk about what people need to do is they need to get it in writing. They need to put it on a paper and get a plan. The first thing you want to do is try to get all your free money. If I'm married to you and you have a 401k plan and your employer matches 6% and my employer doesn't match, I'm better off having you max your 401k to 6%.
Now, this is why it's so important that individuals sit down with a professional, like the different financial planners out there, and you are the top financial planner or advisor, rather, in the Southeast region. And so, you know, it's just very important that individuals actually sit down because you specialize in this information, you specialize in the changes and the tricks of the trade. So I think folks, they are learning from this show, but this is a customized plan per your scenario.
Right, and Social Security is just one of the issues in wealth management. You know, when we're talking wealth management, long-term care. You mentioned caregiver. Caregiving makes caregivers sick. When you got to take care of somebody as they're aging, you get sick too. And they thought Social Security covers it. No, Social Security does not. Medicare does not cover long-term care. Medicaid covers long-term care, which means you have to be indigent. Well, to be indigent, you can't have anything. And they take your house, they take your assets, and they make you live on a subsistence level to qualify for some sort of long-term care assistance. What is long-term care? Basically, it's when you cannot do activities of daily living, transferring, bathing, feeding yourself, you know, shop. When you can't do those things, somebody has to do that for you. So once again, the issue really isn't about not doing something. The issue is really about when are you going to sit down and get a plan together. There's a website, which is the Financial Industry National Regulatory Authority. It's a nonprofit. They regulate all broker-dealers. If you are working with an individual, just type their name in and go to brokercheck.finra.org. It'll tell you if the person you're talking to is licensed to give advice. It'll tell you what states they're licensed in, if they have any lawsuits, complaints, liens. You know, you don't want the blind leading the blind.
I think it's very important to actually do that check because there's a lot of people out here giving advice, and even folks on television by edutainment, which you educated me on, that don't have to be licensed, but they're giving financial advice, and oftentimes you find out they have a stake in that company or that product that they're giving advice in. So it's almost illusional to a certain extent. You know?
1/3 of advisors aren't even fiduciaries. A fiduciary is the highest standard where you have to act in the best interest of your client. And there are rules out there that prevent brokers from being advisors, fiduciaries.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, here's the deal. I talked about the storm in Katrina. How did those people get water? Did they get water? I mean, we can get people all the way around the world, but we can't get water into the Superdome. Let me tell you something. Katrina pales to the coming financial calamity that's going to face the aged as social programs are cut, as food stamps are cut, as Social Security is drawn early. And your plan in a storm is to do what? Take shelter. To take shelter, you got to have supplies, right?
Yep.
So you better start hoarding your supplies. You better start setting aside some money. You better start getting that three-legged stool together now. And it is never too late. Because even if you start at 60 and you live to 90, you got 10 or 15 good years to hoard your supplies so that you're not just living on government handouts. Because we have now seen wealth disparity at levels not seen since the Great Depression.
Wow. I'm glad that you said that because people don't realize what's actually going on, you know, around them. I mean, it's like the middle class is fading, and that's a whole nother show that we can do where you're going to the haves and the have-nots. And so we have to prepare ourselves to make sure that we do have. The ones that don't prepare, they're in major trouble. That storm is going to come on them. Real quick, let's touch base on the government shutdown and the debt ceiling. How is this currently affecting the Social Security fund?
It's a great question. So the government shutdown is only affecting government employees. As far as the debt ceiling, though, what this is basically simple. Congress has authorized spending, includes Social Security, Medicare, all the bills that these congressmen signed to pay, okay? The debt ceiling is supposed to basically say, hey, let's write the check to pay those bills that we've already bought. Everything else is noise. Here's the bottom line. Social Security is one of those entitlement programs that if the debt ceiling's not raised, somebody has to decide who gets paid with the government money that they have. Will it be China, who owns our bonds? Will it be the Japanese? Will it be the soldiers? Would it be the Capitol Police who were defending the Congress last week for no money? The bottom line is, my belief is the debt ceiling will be raised, period. And everything you hear in between then is just noise. But at the end of the day, Social Security checks will be paid. Remember, who votes? Seniors vote. You mess with their paycheck. Since so many of them are only dependent on that, I doubt that whoever in office is going to be in there much longer. If
That
they
would
continue to
be
block
just
that.
cruel to mess with their paycheck. You know, it's a lot of seniors out here that have retired and didn't have the three-legged stool, and sometimes they make a choice between food and medicine and things of that nature. There's some real bad stories out here, but there's some great stories I found in regards to retirement as well.
Absolutely. All you got to do is, for those of you who want to know, just go to wealth distribution in America. You Google it. Google wealth distribution in America, wealth inequality, and you will see since 1970, the middle class has shrunk and that 1% of Americans control 40 to 50% of the nation's wealth. And this has only increased in the last year, the last 5 or 6 years. Now, I'm not going to sit here and get mad at that. I'm just saying, look, this is what it is. What are you going to do to get you and your family better off than you are today? You could buy life insurance, you could save, but the key is you better plan. Ain't nobody going to come knocking at your door giving you money.
And then also, just want to make sure everyone's aware while they're planning that there's a variety of different type of retirement programs out there that they can choose from. And so, you know, we haven't really mentioned them today, but when they sit down with an individual or they seek this information, they will see that they do have options. They can put a three-legged stool together, they can put a four-legged stool together, but they definitely have options.
Absolutely. See, the difference that I've found in my 25 years of doing this is that poor people buy stuff. Stuff. You go to their house, they got stuff. They got stuff they got from flea markets, they got stuff. Middle class people, you know what they don't know we do? We buy things. Cars, boats, house, but none of that stuff pays us a paycheck. Wealthy people invest in things that pay them back a paycheck, in real estate or in investments, mutual funds, etc. If you want to have wealth, you need to invest. And if you want to invest, you need to prepare for it and plan for it. And at the end of the day, that's what wealth is. If I'm going to sit here and say, well, I'm struggling, well, instead of paying money for an iPad or iPod for my kids, why not get a basic life insurance policy? Something happens to me, they're taken care of.
We appreciate you for watching the Community Spotlight. I'm your host, ATIYA Harris. We trust that you all will get that three-legged stool together, and we pray that you have that knapsack or backpack and you're able to travel the world when you retire.